Hello there, it's Alana Taki, and this time I'm going to show you a little something different. I'm going to show you how to make a scattergram with Excel. Now, Excel's a lot better for making scattergrams than a calculator would be because, of course, Excel you can copy, paste, put it into a report for your boss or your other teachers, etc., etc. So you can see that I've already typed in the values here, and in case it's not clear, I just type respondent, enter A, B, and so on. Actually, to be honest with you, I'm extremely lazy, and I typed it in one time in the notes back here, and then I just kind of copied and pasted because that's kind of the way I am. But you can type it in yourself. To make these things bold or not bold, you can, here, I'll show you. I started off with none of this having borders, so I had no borders, and then these weren't bold. And then what I did was I just kind of click and drag, so I'm highlighting all that data, and I go up here to the borders menu. This is kind of the quick menu to get to borders, and then I selected all, and now everything's got a border on it. And then I just kind of highlight these cells, or I could highlight the whole row if I wanted by clicking on the one over here. If you click on the one, it highlights that whole row, and then I press Control B, or you can click on this little B up here and it'll make it all bold. Nice, huh? And again, this stuff isn't necessary, but it's nice to know how to kind of prettify. I'm not sure that's a word. Let's go with it. Prettify your tables and such. All right, so what I want to do is I really want to make a scattergram out of these data right here. The respondent thing isn't really important because it isn't really a variable, it's just a way of labeling. But my X's and my Y's are the years of education and the score in the prejudice test. So I'm going to highlight all of that, and the way I'm doing that is I kind of click on the top left corner cell, left click on it, and then I drag my mouse down, holding down that left mouse button, and I drag down into the right until all the data is highlighted. And then I lift off on the mouse button and I'm able to kind of roam around on my cursor. Now I'm going to go to the insert menu up here. So I go to insert, and I'm going to choose the scatter plot right here. And we always want this one in the top left corner. So I'm going to click that. Ta-da! I have a scatter plot. And it's already much nicer than anything my calculator would make because it's got color, it's got pretty lines and stuff like that. All right, now this I don't really need, so I'm just going to click on that and press delete and make it go away because I don't really need that. And I don't really like this at all. Let's call this education versus prejudice or something like that. Enter. And there we go. So you can see how I'm adjusting my title. I just kind of clicked on it and typed, right? Now let's see what else can I do. Oh, I could play with some axes titles. So if I go to, now you can see here, when you're clicked on the chart, do you see what happens? These three chart tool ribbons come up. If I click off of it, they're disappeared. If I click on it, shwing, they're back. These are menu items that are only available for dealing with these charts. Okay, so let's see here. I can go to layout, and I'm going to give myself some axis titles. So let's start with the horizontal axis. This was years of education. If I could spell. Enter. And there we go. And then I can go to axis title vertical axis and type rotated, and I want score on prejudice test. Enter. Beautiful. Now, what if you want, I don't know, let's get really tricky. This is pretty good actually right here. This is probably, you can copy and paste this. But sometimes students want the vertical lines. They want more of a grid. So if you want that, you can click down here on these numbers on here, this axis, right click, and you can say add major grid lines. And there it's adding the grid lines at the tick marks that you want it. And then you're like, oh, I don't know, I want more. I want to add minor grid lines. There you go, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on. And then you think, oh, well, I'd like it if my axis was kind of darker. So if I click on these, right click, format axis. So I'm clicking on that, those numbers down there on that axis. And I say line style, and I'm going to boost it up to like 1.75. See how dark it's getting? See? Line color, you could play with the color. Like right now it's like a gray, but I can make it black. Ooh, there we go. Or heck, you can make it blue if you really wanted, but that would probably not be a good idea. Let's see, then close. Let's look at that. And then I could go, okay, well, I want to add minor grid lines here. Oh, wait, ugh. That's doing them like 0.1, 0.2. No. All right, right click, format that axis. And I'm going to play around here. All right, first of all, I want this to be like 1.5. I want the color to be black. I want it to be really bold. And then I'm going to go to my axis options for a second, and I want you to see what's happening. It started, the axis at 0, ends it at 12. See? 0 to 12. Okay, that's fine. It's got my major unit is 2, but my minor unit is 0.4. Ugh. All right, I'm going to fix that at 1. Let's see how that looks. Close. And there you go. 1, 2, 3, 4. See? And then if you don't like the colors, you can play around with those too. And you can do it a couple ways. One is the design menu. You can say like, oh, okay, I don't like blue. I want red. Ooh, with a color background. Or I want, let's see, orange with a black background. Woo! Fun like that, right? All right, I'm a math nerd. I find this stuff way too much fun. I admit it. I know. There I want big purple dots, right? And then if you want to adjust them more, you click on the dots themselves. See how all of them have got these little boxes around it? You right click and you format your data series. And you can play around with marker. Like it's automatic right now, marker options. You can see it's built in. It's going to be that size, etc. Right? So you can fiddle around here with changing that. Like, oh, I want smaller dots. See how they're getting smaller over in the screen, etc., etc., etc. So you can fiddle around if you want shadows and all sorts of things. But honestly, this is really good. I've got a title. I've got axes labeled. I've got nice clear markers. The black ones are all fun and well and nice to look at for like a report, but they're not something you'd really want to copy and paste usually into a Word document, just because you'd have to print out all that black, right, if you want to submit it to your instructor or something. I've made it so that my tick marks are nice and clean. They make good sense, right? I've got 5s and so on. Oh, I must have, when I mucked around with my axis, I must have lost my thick axis. So I don't mind if it's not black. That doesn't really bother me, but I'm going to go fiddle with those again. Sometimes Microsoft Excel gets a little bit fancy and tries to think it knows better than you for whatever you're trying to adjust. So sometimes you might have to go back and readjust. So I've made those axes thicker. I kind of like that. And then I made the tick marks. Now you don't usually have to do all this stuff, but you always have to do titles and labels. That makes sense, right? And you don't have to have a grid, but doesn't it look pretty when you have one? All right. So hopefully you now have a sense of how to mess around with your graph a little bit better. And if ever you're stuck and you're like, oh no, you know, I messed up something totally, remember you can undo, right? So there's always the option to kind of undo whatever you last did. I do it by hitting the Control Z. So if I hit Control Z, let me do it now. There, it changes the graph. See, look, I lost my thickness. I lose my other thickness, etc., etc. So if you fiddle around with your Control Z and Control Y is the other direction, so redo back what you did, then you can kind of always get back. And if you're stuck and you don't know what else to do, then just start over. Highlight the data, insert, scattergram, right? Delete this, and you can start adjusting and adding in labels and stuff like that. And changing your colors. All right, I hope you feel more confident with using Excel. It is super easy to make a graph with Excel. And honestly, you can go as simple as this guy, but with always want titles though. That's one thing. So this was prejudice test score, and this was horizontal. What was it? Years of education. That's what it was. Years of education. So you can do something as simple as this graph, right? As basic as that, or you can do something much more elaborate like this one on the right, with the grid lines and the extra thick axes and stuff like that. You can go even further. There's more stuff in case you haven't noticed. There's all sorts of menu and layout and design options. You can play around and make the edges of your graph purple, you know, and stuff like that. So there's a lot of different options. You can play around with the font that you're using, etc., etc. So there's a lot of different ways, but you can go pretty simple, pretty basic. This is as basic as you should ever get, which is title, chart title. You know, you got your dots and you got your scale and you're done. And then you can get very elaborate and very advanced the more you play around with it. All right, I hope that helps, and I hope you feel confident with making a graph with Excel. See you later.